I never walk into a room in my life where I don't look around and ask myself, am I the most powerful guy in this room? And there's times the answer has been no. I didn't like those times, but I do ask the question. And I'll just share with you, if you ever go into a meeting like this and you're in over your head and you know you're in over the head, don't say a word. And I don't mean if somebody comes to you and says hello, you don't say hello back, right? Don't take it in a little less. But don't say a word. Don't ask a question. Don't reveal anything. Don't reveal that you don't know. Sit there. And there are people that might think, well, that's a dumb guy. Everybody talk but him. He must be dumb. No, if that guy was dumb, he would have talked. And he would have let you know that he doesn't know. There's a real power in it. The information that you give, look, if you guys have a boss, don't tell him everything. Not about your personal life. Don't come in and tell your boss that's working you to death that you just bought a truck or you just bought a house. Then he knows he's got you. You can't go anywhere. You got a truck payment. You can't go anywhere. You got a house payment. And I'm just sharing for you, there's information that you need to keep. Business is not just making sure that you have a good or a service and making sure that your profits exceed your expenditures. I mean, that would be a really quick version of it, but another part of business is protecting information. I've been surprised at how little traction Deontae Wilder going after Francis on live television brought. I loved it. I love everybody in that shot. I love George Greenberg for setting it up, and Deontay Wilder stole the show. He stole the show. And no one talked about it. Francis didn't talk about it. PFL didn't come and talk about it. They did not come out and hint that they just did it. It died. Why? And I'm wondering that. But I ask myself those questions. Like, that's interesting for me. Why did that die? Why did that not go anywhere? Why, when Conor McGregor told Ariel Helwani at a sit-down in England that he was going to beat Floyd Mayweather and he was going to beat him because of how big his hand is, and Floyd can't hurt him because of how small his hand is. I've never heard of such things in my life, but boy, Conor sounded confident when he said it. It made me interested. I wouldn't even know where to check. I don't know who's got the bigger hands, or I have Southpaw, Orthodox. I don't know anything about it. But I wouldn't even think to who's got the longer reach. How do we know? I just look down and I get, oh, you actually measure? I've never done, nobody's ever measured my arm. Has anybody measured yours? It's weird. But Conor said that his circumference was bigger than Floyd's. They crushed him because of that. It was really interesting. That's all I'm saying. It was really interesting. So I'll go back and I'll see, how did that turn in to $250 million in business? And this can't get a headline. And to understand this concept, guys, okay? Because right now, you're not a bad guy. You're a bad guy university. I am going to teach you a massive lesson. But to understand this concept, I think perhaps it would be helpful to understand the timeline here. And the timeline is very relevant. When Francis Ngannou is looking around for a home, for the numbers that Francis needed to be at all competitive with the numbers that Francis already turned down, whatever organization he went to must have a pay-per-view arm. They must. Everybody will be capped. The only one where there's no ceiling is participation in a pay-per-view. So now you got to start with an organization that has it. I bring that too because then the PFL comes out and they've got it. Oh, and by the way, it was Jake Paul that did this. Jake Paul's being credited for partnering with them in that. Jake Paul says that he's going to fight MMA on the pay-per-view for the PFL. And Jake Paul, all of the same thing, all of the same vignette, challenged Nate Diaz, and he had an idea that we do it twice. We do it in boxing, and then we do it in MMA. So, right after that is where Francis then came to Deontay with a, hey, let's do both. And it's where Deontay came to Francis, hey, let's do both. They heard an idea by Jake Paul that they liked, and they stole the idea. There's nothing new about that. But I'm reminding you of this because Deontay's idea didn't go anywhere. Jake Paul is scheduled to fight Nate Diaz. So, what I want you to understand when I talk to you about preserving information, when I talk to you about staying quiet and protecting information, Jake Paul suggested that he and Diaz fight twice. Diaz apparently has said no. Not only that, we're just going to do the one that you like. Does that sound right to you guys? Do you think that's how that conversation went? Jake Paul tells the world, I'll fight you in both in a 2-fight deal for a gobble money. And Nate comes in and says, no deal. I want the one that's really bad for me and really helpful for you at a weight class I haven't been in a jurisdiction that's taking my medicine away. That's what does that sound right to you? Or would it sound more right if you got men together that realized the story's not very good if we're going to do both? Because what we're really telling people is you are going to win this one and I am going to win this one, and we leave here dead effing even. And we both know this to the extent that I want the one that's going to go my way to be the last thing that they see. I mean, right? It's a very transparent and obvious play when you book both, that you both are telling the world. You're not only saying I can beat you here. You're saying I cannot beat you here, and that's a tough sell. So let's just say that you had guys like that, and it was paramount. Deontay will come over, he'll do the Francis thing, but make no mistake, I'm gonna come do you a solid, but you gotta come into mine. You gotta give me a chance to get that one back. Okay, great. Oh, hey, by the way, guys, don't tell anyone this. Let's just tell the people what they need to know, which is you two are going to box on this date. Don't tell them anything else. Now, we all agree, and we can even put pen to paper here in private bat agreements and LOIs that we're then going to go and do the other sport. We can put the fee and the amount. We can put all of these things in. Let's not reveal. Let's put a moratorium on that. And it is the one significant difference. You had Deontay Wilder, and I got to tell you, I loved it. I thought Deontay did a great job. I thought he looked cool in that white shirt. Man, he was looking buff and angry. He's got the jawline. I was into it. Deontay was popping. But it didn't go anywhere. I was the only one that liked it. I'm the only one that talked about it. That surprised me. Even internally, they didn't like it. Well, what is the difference? He stole the idea from Paul, and apparently he stole a good idea. That's what you do with good ideas, right? You see other people and you take them. Paul's got the fight. He did everything that Paul did, but Paul's got the fight. He doesn't have a fight. And I suggest for you that Paul's proposal of you come box me and I fight you in MMA, I submit for you, was agreed to. I submit for you that option and activation is in place. And there's times that you want to use it, right? If Nate goes out there and beats Paul in boxing, we don't need to go and do MMA. We're not going to go and do MMA. Do you see where it's different? You see how you can still get the agreements done? And that would be the biggest thing. If Deontay and Francis wanted to do this, they can go into a closed room and they can get the guaranteed rematch clause. Happens all the time. But if they want to get the deal done, they've got to control what information they give the public. How big of a hurry are you going to be to buy a fight that these two already know the result to? Oh, and by the way, if you happen to miss it, you're doing something else, you can just get the next one because it's coming. Do you see the difference? Do you see where it's a massive problem? Ultimate Warrior was paid $3 million to return to wrestling in the 90s. He returns to wrestling. He squares off with Hulk Hogan. Now, they had the biggest match of all time, and it happened in, I believe, 88. If I'm wrong, it was in 89. Call it 10 years later, Warrior returns. But people don't know that match happened. I mean, it was a long time ago. I was in the 6th grade. I did know, but a lot of people don't, and the fans change very quickly. So when Warrior is standing toe-to-toe with Hogan, and he's attempting to build what they're doing that he was paid $3 million to do on a pay-per-view at another date, and he tells the audience, we already did this once, and I beat you. You just killed it. As soon as you told them the outcome, you just killed it. You can talk about your heat, your rivalry, your back and forth, what you guys weighed, how you were training, who your valet was, what your mother made you for breakfast that day. You can't talk about the outcome in an event that is predetermined like wrestling and is only predicated on the outcome. And I just bring that for you. I've studied this. Jake Paul did to Nate Diaz exactly what Deontay did to Francis. Jake Paul got the fight. Deontay and Francis didn't even get a headline. And the one thing is different is that somewhere along the way, Paul realized it's not helpful to give the audience all the information at once. I'm not doing 2 on sales. I don't have 2 venues. There isn't 2 different dates. There's one. Let's put all of our focus on one. And I don't think it's too late. I mean, there's dialogue out here about Jon Jones and Tyson Fury. I suggest for you that when they get together, you can work those contracts out. Whatever it is that you need, you can work those out. But when you come and tell the audience, you don't owe us all the information all at once.